You know, looking at the files for Ventem Hill, it honestly feels like you're reading a noir script. But this wasn't fiction. This was 1966 Brazil, and it's deeply unsettling.
It really is. I keep coming back to the idea that it's the ultimate locked room mystery, except the room is an open hillside. And then you have the masks, those handmade lead masks.
Wait, lead masks? Just left there?
Right, and paired with a set of instructions that frankly make no sense. You have to remember the atmosphere of the time, the military dictatorship, the frenzy over the space race, and then, in the middle of all that, you have this. We really need to ground ourselves in the gravity of that scene before we even look at the evidence.
So, let's look at August 20th, 1966. It's a heavy, humid Saturday in Brazil, and we're on the slopes of Morro do Ventem. It's rough terrain, totally overgrown.
Right. And you have this young boy, Jorge, just out flying a kite. He's chasing it through the thick brush when he stumbles onto a scene that, well, it stayed with the public consciousness for decades.
Two men, lying side by side.
Exactly. And they aren't dressed for a hike. They're in full formal suits, wearing these heavy waterproof raincoats. But then you get to the detail. That's just truly unsettling.
Wait, the masks?
The masks. These crude, hand-cut pieces of lead covering their eyes. No explanation. Jorge didn't even touch them. He just bolted. And the terrain was so difficult, the weather so bad, the police couldn't even get up there to investigate until the next day. It's just chilling.
So, picture this. It's August 21st, and the search party finally reaches the top of the hill. They're expecting a crime scene, but instead, it's just total silence. No struggle, no blood, just Manuel and Miguel lying side by side on the wet earth.
Right. And it's that stillness that really gets under your skin. If there had been a struggle, that grass would be trampled. But instead, they were found resting on a bed of leaves. Next to them, just an empty water bottle and a packet with 2 wet towels.
Wait, wet towels? That's such a bizarre thing to bring to a hilltop.
It is. And then you have the raincoats. They bought those specifically for this trip. It's a chilling detail, honestly. It suggests they knew they'd be out there, exposed to the elements for a very long time. They weren't just caught in the rain. They were waiting for something.
It's the detail that gives the case its name, isn't it? But when you look at how these masks were actually constructed, it's deeply unsettling. They weren't industrial gear. They were hand-cut from solid lead sheets, shaped almost like sunglasses, but with no holes for the eyes.
Right. They were essentially blindfolds made of heavy metal. It's such a deliberate choice. You have to remember, in 1966, lead was the primary defense against radiation. That implies they were protecting themselves from something nuclear or radiographic.
And since Manuel and Miguel were electronics technicians, they had the expertise to make these themselves. They weren't just found with them, they crafted them.
Exactly. That's where the narrative shifts. You don't hand-cut lead eye shields unless you're expecting a blinding light or a specific type of energy on that hill. It takes this from a potential crime scene and turns it into something much more technological or even occult.
See, this is the part of the story that actually keeps me up at night. It's the smoking gun that turned this case into a legend. They found a small notebook in one of their pockets, and inside, well, it's a set of instructions, coded almost.
Right. And it's written in this strange mix of Portuguese technical jargon and, I don't know, bizarre commands. It literally says, 1630, be at the agreed place. 1830, swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals. Wait for mask signal.
Swallow capsules. That's just chilling. It's so clinical.
Exactly. It reads like a checklist for a procedure, not a suicide note. But the big question is, what were the capsules? Was it cyanide? Or maybe something they thought would, I don't know, prepare them for whatever was coming?
And that phrase, protect metals. I mean, what are we even looking at there? Were they trying to protect the lead masks? Or were they worried about something happening to their bodies?
It's baffling. But then you have that final line, wait for mask signal. It implies a synchronized event, right? Like they were waiting for a cue. To them, this wasn't an end. It was an experiment.
To really get a handle on the madness here, we have to look at who Manuel and Miguel actually were. I mean, on the surface, they were just normal, respected family men from Campos dos Goitacazes.
Right. They were electronic technicians. They ran a successful repair shop. These weren't drifters or fringe cult leaders. They were logical, technical people.
But that's where it gets unsettling, because beneath that professional exterior, they were what people called scientific spiritualists.
Exactly. And you have to remember, in 1960s Brazil, there was this very thin line between spiritism and electronics. People genuinely believed you could, well, talk to the dead using radio frequencies, and these two were obsessed with that.
So they leave home, telling their families they're going to buy a car and some supplies. They have a significant amount of cash on them, money that, we should note, completely vanished.
That's the chilling part. This duality, being grounded, rational technicians on one hand and mystical seekers on the other. It's the absolute heart of the tragedy. They were looking for an intersection between two worlds that maybe shouldn't have met.
It's August 17th, 1966. These two men leave their lives in Campos behind, but they aren't traveling light. They're carrying 3 million cruzeros in cash. I mean, that's a small fortune for the time.
Right, and that's the big question. Was this experiment they were talking about just a lure for a robbery? They get to Niterói around 2 p.m. It's pouring rain, and they don't go to an electronic shop. They head straight for a local store to buy heavy raincoats.
Wait, raincoats? For men dressed in formal suits?
Exactly. The shopkeeper said it felt off. They weren't just browsing. They were anxious, focused, like they were working against a clock. They weren't just two guys on a trip. They were men on a mission.
So, the trail effectively ends at this small bar at the base of the hill. It's a mundane setting for what comes next, but the atmosphere there was anything but normal.
Right. They buy a simple bottle of magnesium water, but the waitress notices something. Miguel he's unraveling. He's agitated, constantly checking his watch, clearly fixated on that specific instruction in the note. 16:30. Be at the agreed place.
That's a chilling detail, the strictness of it.
It really is. And while Manuel seemed calm, almost like he was the one leading this, Miguel was in a hurry. He told the waitress they'd be back to return the bottle, but they never did. They took it up the hill. That obsession with the clock, it suggests they weren't planning an ending. They were keeping an appointment.
So, they step out of the bar and start heading up Morro do Vintém. It's pouring rain, the slope is a muddy mess, and they're doing this in dress shoes.
Right, which is just, it's a detail that sticks with you. That kind of climb in formal wear, that's not a casual hike. That's a mission.
And then, they just disappear into the trees.
Gone. And according to the note found later, at 6:30 p.m., they were scheduled to swallow capsules. Imagine that scene. It's pitch black. They're soaked, and they're putting on these handmade lead masks.
Wait, lead masks? That's chilling.
It really is. They were completely alone out there. Whatever happened next, it happened in total silence and absolute darkness.
This is where everything just hits a brick wall. The bodies were found so late, and the Niterói coroner's office back then, they were just completely overwhelmed. The final autopsy report was, well, let's just say inconclusive.
Right. And let's be blunt. It was a botched job. No signs of trauma, no struggle, but they missed the most critical step. a deep toxicological screen. By the time they realized they needed to look for more subtle substances, the organs were just too degraded. We have that cryptic note mentioning capsules, sure, but zero forensic proof of what was actually in them. It's this massive, haunting void, right at the heart of the evidence.
Let's get into the money trail, because this is where the story gets truly unsettling. 3 million cruzeros, just gone. All that was left in their pockets were a few small coins. On the surface, you'd think, okay, a robbery, right?
Right. But if it was a robbery, it's the strangest one on record. I mean, they were both still wearing their gold rings. Their expensive watches were still right there on their wrists. A common thief doesn't just leave those behind.
That's a chilling detail. It's so selective.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, was that money stolen? Or was it a payment? Maybe it was the price for those capsules they were supposed to take. Or, and this is the darker theory, did the first police on the scene simply pocket the cash? It's a grim possibility. Either way, the jewelry stayed, but the money vanished into thin air.
You know, looking at Manuel and Miguel, you just see 2 TV repairmen, but when you dig into what they actually believed, it's chilling. They weren't just fixing circuits, they were trying to tune into the universe itself.
Right, through what they called scientific spiritualism. They didn't see spirits or extraterrestrials as supernatural. To them, it was all just one big energetic spectrum, pure physics.
Wait, so those lead masks found at the scene, they weren't for some ritual?
Exactly. According to their inner circle, they were on a secret mission. They believed that by combining specific substances with these rituals, they could trigger telepathic contact. The masks were functional, a shield to protect the eyes or the pineal gland from the blinding radiation they expected from a UFO landing. To them, Vintem Hill wasn't a place of worship, it was a laboratory.
You know, it's worth remembering that Vintem Hill wasn't their first brush with something unsettling. Months earlier, down at Atafona Beach, there was this massive explosion. A blinding flash, a tremor that shook the locals. It was significant.
And the technicians just brushed it off as testing equipment, right? But for me, that explosion is a massive red flag. It shows a pattern of incredibly risky behavior. They were playing with volatile forces, maybe high-voltage electronics, in pursuit of this contact.
So you think they were trying to recreate that same energy on the hill?
Exactly. It makes that cryptic note about protecting metals feel much more grounded. If they expected another surge, the lead masks weren't just ritualistic. They were shielding. They were escalating their experiments. And this time, they were stepping into the deep end.
So, let's talk about that note found at the scene. Handwriting experts say it was definitely Miguel's penmanship, but the tone, it feels like dictation, like he was being told exactly what to say.
Right. It points to this shadowy third man, a guru or a guide who was really pulling the strings. The police actually zeroed in on a member of their spiritualist circle, a man named Elcio Gomez, who was with them right before the trip.
Wait, so the theory is this guide basically orchestrated the whole thing?
Exactly. He promises them a divine encounter, sells them these capsules, which are actually just poison, takes their money, and leaves them to die on that hillside. It's a classic snake oil scam, but with a chilling, psychedelic twist.
You know, we can't look at this case in a vacuum. 1966 was a total flashpoint for UFO sightings in Brazil, and on that specific night in Niterói, the hill was practically alive. Multiple residents reported these strange, luminous objects just hovering over Morro do Vintém.
Right. And there's one report that really stops you in your tracks. A neighbor described an orange glowing object actually resting on the hillside, right around the time those men were supposed to be waiting for the signal.
Wait, an orange glow? At the exact location where they were found?
Exactly. It makes you wonder if it was mass hysteria or something more physical. Either way, it validates their motivation. It's a heavy thought, but they were either waiting for a ride that never landed, or they died from the very interaction they were seeking.
Let's loop back to those capsules for a moment, because that note, swallow capsules, it's just so clinical, isn't it? I mean, if we're looking at a homicide, those are clearly delivery systems for poison. But if this was an experiment, what did they actually think they were taking?
Right. And the leading theory there, and it's a heavy one, is that they were chasing some kind of shortcut to a higher state. LSD, maybe mescaline. They wanted to induce a trance to communicate with these entities. But then you have to wonder, was the dosage wrong? Was the substance impure? Or, and this is the darker turn, were they simply lied to?
Wait, lied to how?
Think about it. Swallow this to survive the transport beam. They might have been convinced the capsules were a protective agent against radiation, when in reality, it was cyanide. It's a terrifying manipulation of their faith.
So it's 1969. 3 years later, they decide to exhume the bodies. There's this sense of hope, right? Like, okay, the technology has caught up. We're finally going to find the poison.
Exactly. But when they actually opened the coffins, it was a disaster. They were completely flooded. That intense Brazilian humidity had essentially destroyed the evidence twice. First on the hillside, and then again underground.
That's a chilling detail. So any chance of a toxicology report was just washed away?
Gone. Nature literally erased the physical link to their cause of death. It leaves us in this haunting position where the forensic science is a dead end, and all we're left with are the objects they left behind. The suits, the note, and those bizarre lead masks. We have to profile the men because the bodies can't tell us anything anymore.
If we look at the psychological profile here, I mean, were these men even suicidal?
According to everyone who knew them, absolutely not. They were actually planning for the future. They just bought a car, stocked up on gear.
Right, and those waterproof coats. That's a chilling detail, isn't it? You don't usually worry about staying dry and comfortable if you don't expect to be around the next morning.
Exactly. That's the strongest evidence for an accidental death. They were deep in this scientific ritual that just spiraled. Between the drugs and the mountain exposure, they were likely freezing, hallucinating, maybe even in cardiac arrest.
So they didn't go up there to end it.
Not at all. They went up there expecting to wake up with answers, or to find themselves on another planet.
You look at Moro Duvington today. It's almost unsettling how little has changed. The case is still just as cold as it was decades ago, but it's grown into this massive cornerstone of Brazilian mystery. It really makes you ask, how far are we actually willing to go for the truth?
It's a haunting question. I mean, you look at Manuel and Miguel. They were essentially pioneers of the fringe, stepping into the dark with nothing but homemade gear. And those lead masks, to see the invisible, that's a chilling detail. Whether they actually found what they were looking for or just met a tragic end, we'll never know. They took those secrets to the grave, protected by lead and absolute silence.
It's a haunting image, isn't it? Two men in formal suits lying on a rain-swept hillside, wearing lead masks. It's like a puzzle where the pieces don't even belong to the same picture.
Right. You have the mundane, the missing money, clashing with the truly bizarre. It makes you wonder, were they just gullible targets for a fraudster? Or were they actually trying to initiate some kind of contact?
You mean the UFO theory? Or even something more fringe than that?
Exactly. But for me, the capsules are the biggest variable. If we knew the chemistry of what they swallowed, we'd know the intent. But that knowledge, it's just gone.
That's the part that sticks with me. So we want to hear from you. What do you think was actually in those capsules? Was this an occult ritual,
An extraterrestrial encounter? Or just a cold-blooded murder disguised as a mystery?